Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Brother Son Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So immediately picking up in the aftermath of last episode, and just even though their mom was in the middle of cutting up a body, I guess Bruce followed his mom's orders and just went straight to bed. So he wakes up, the body's already in a suitcase he's supposed to put in the car because Charles wants him to step up. Like I said, I think there is that little bit of, yes, it's like you grew up soft, we need to do what we need to protect the family, but I think there is a little bit of that, right? You got to live the cushy life where I went through everything to be trained up to be this assassin. Because he even talks about it later on with Bruce about how the triads are in a way where it's like you're not supposed to know who's who. Like, I mean, specifically amongst like they're like no one knows who anyone is. Like Sleepy Chan is like, yeah, we know his nickname, but no one knows who he is. Like that's how you protect yourself. That's how I guess it's also meant to be that. Well, you don't know all the players. I'm sure everyone involved in like their family's like triad knows who's who, right? But that way it makes it a little harder to go after. As Charles puts it, each triad has it's like a hornet's nest. Unless you wipe out the whole hornet's nest, you always have to worry about hornets eventually. You know, it's almost like, I mean, using Greek mythology, it's like the Hydra. You cut off one hand, another one's going to pop up type of situation. But Charles is well known. Everyone knows him as Chair Leg son, or was it Chair Leg Charles, because his dad has why keep my secret weapon a secret? Because he's supposed to be a deterrent, that with his reputation out front, it ends up being a thing of people are less likely to act up or cause violence. I'm meant to deter violence. I cause enough violence, death, and mayhem that no one, even my name being uttered, means you don't step to their family. But it is also kind of sad when you actually break that down, because it's like, right, you were fashioned into this. You were basically the shield between your family and the outside world. Like your dad has put you out front to catch every like stray bullet and every like blade coming your way. He's there to like block and repel it, and like that's a lot to put on someone's shoulders. But he feels the need to no, like this is my job. I'm meant to protect my family. But because of that, he does shoulder a lot of that, because he feels like it is his responsibility. It's my job as the head of the family now that my dad's out of commission. I'm the one that has to step up. I have to take responsibility, and that's also why he looks down on Bruce so much, because it's like, you're soft, you don't really know our ways. The fact of the matter is you've been sheltered for so long. Like I said, I think there is some underlying resentment where he never got to have a normal life. Bruce did. You got to be away from everything, and it is unfair. Even later on, his mom said, it sucks what you had to sacrifice for the sake of protecting his family, what you had to sacrifice of yourself. He had to lose a lot of himself, and I think that's definitely going to pop up more as we explore him and Alexis's relationship, because that's probably one of the few friends, and maybe even back then he had a thing for her, because they haven't seen each other in like 15 years, but maybe even back then he had a thing for her, but he was so caught up in who he was being nurtured into being kind of like the heavy hitter of his family, that so much kind of like on the criminal side like weighed on his shoulders, where once again his brother got to be away from all of that. So like I said, Bruce is supposed to be going to school so that he can become a doctor and everything. Once again, there's like the Asian side of things, but I thought it was interesting his mom's justification, because it's like, right, we could use a doctor in the family, which makes a lot of sense. We have a personal doctor on call. Now I don't know if that's just a justification. It's most likely a justification she came up with just for Charles to try and justify him going to school, but it might just be a thing of, no, I want him to have a good job and good career. But maybe, I mean, she even says it later too, that she's been planning this moment, like all of this going down, before she even left Taipei. So it's like, no, like I thought this through. Him being a doctor wasn't just about, okay, you have a good, stable enough career, but it's also nice to have a doctor in the family. Even he tried to justify it by being like, oh yeah, like, antibiotics or painkillers, I can kind of sneak that your direction and stuff like that. So it makes sense from a logistics standpoint to have a doctor in the family. That way you don't have to trust anyone on the outside. You can keep it all in-house, because especially way Charles talks about that world, is like you don't know who you can trust. Like trust has to be earned. And even then, it's, you'd always get stabbed in the back by someone who's got their own self-interest involved. So keeping like any medical stuff you need on the inside helps out a lot. So like I said, from a logistics standpoint, it makes sense. So I just don't know if that is always been her plan why she wants Bruce to become a doctor, or is that just an excuse she came up with towards Charles to justify it so he not question her as much? Because she had to deal with that this entire episode, Charles questioning her leadership of like, because for him it's like, you've been out of the game for so long, you don't know how this whole thing operates. I have been in the middle of it, but you've been so removed. But for her it's like, I love her story in this episode because obviously she's the doting mother being like, hey, like, is Bruce okay? Like, did you actually take him to school? I get the feeling, like, at first I was like, did she know? Because the way she was talking to Bruce and she was like, kids. Where it's just, I think it's just nice for one to kind of have both her boys under the same roof again. But the way she had said it made me go, does she actually know? Does she know, like, okay, you guys are full of shit? Or the way she responds later on makes it seem like she didn't know that Charles had taken Bruce with her. But either way, getting back to what I was saying earlier about her, it's like I was wondering the entire time, like, she kept making that hand motion when she's going to talk to other people. She's playing Mahjong, which I know nothing about Mahjong. Like, it's a game I see pop up and stuff from time to time. I actually don't even know the rules of Mahjong. I don't know what, like, the end goal is. It's one of those games like Go that you see and stuff, and you're like, I have no idea what that is, and I don't understand. But yeah, the entire time, like, what is that hand motion? Because it looks like she's, like, measuring something out, but I didn't get it. But then we find out at the end, all that Charles was doing, thinking he knew how to figure stuff out. The entire episode, he's trying to figure out the Giant's name, who he is, and what organization he's part of. And his mom figured it out on her own without fighting anyone. She just talked to people. She's like, you're in my backyard. Once again, I planned this out. I've known, like, I've been preparing for this, and I've nurtured these relationships. These places are old school. They're not on apps. They're not on the internet. Like, these are places you have to go to in person. These places deliver. So she got the dude's name, got his address her own way. Like, this is my backyard. You don't know. You're so used to how things run in Taipei. Like, you have to be aggressive. It's fist first, questions later type of situation. But it's like, no. Like, this is my backyard. When I tell you to do something, do it. Because without, like, he calls all of the rigmarole because he didn't do what she simply asked him to. Because the reason why, well, they also got screwed over by the animal dealer, but it turns out he was kind of, like, stabbing them in the back regardless. But either way, because I think that just speaks volumes about whoever's coming after them is just that powerful and scary that they would go through the trouble of backstabbing the Sun family. Because obviously, like, because Charles had said, our dad didn't start this triad. Our triad, like, has deep, deep history. But our dad is the reason why our triad is what it is today. Like, he's been the one to kind of bring it into the modern era of what it's become. But either way, it's like, we are such a big thing. Like, that was also something his mom was getting at too, of like, you're so focused on Sleepy Chan, you and your dad, acting like he's the only other competition. There are other triads out there that are gunning for us, but you're so busy focusing on, like, the bad beef that you have with Sleepy Chan because you think, oh, he's the only competition out there. You probably weren't paying attention to the other rising powers that were out there. Like, there might have been someone out there secretly gaining muscle and strength and power. So, because for them to also, because it's not like their power stopped in Taipei. They have enough power and reach here in America as well. So either this triad, whoever they are gunning for them, might be on an international scale. Because I'm curious, like, is their operations even international? Their operations might just be allocated to Taiwan, Maybe specifically just Taipei, but maybe it's like Taiwan in general. Whoever this is has enough reach and pull. To be fair, it's local muscle that's getting hired, so they might not have the foothold in this world, because they could just be like, no, we're hiring out local people, but they were on top of it fast. Like, so it might not just be their mom that's the planner, whoever they're going up against. Like I said, everything has been set up, drawing your dad in, sending you to America to basically follow you back to your family, because they probably couldn't find your mom and your brother on their own, so they needed you to basically be the breadcrumbs they needed to follow you towards them. So it takes someone smart who, like, and once again, I go back to it, I think it's going to be his dad's second in command, who knows enough about him, and he's the one that pointed him towards, hey, you need to protect your family. Maybe that's just him doing his job, but I just feel like he's going to be the one that's revealed of, if he's not the main dude behind it, at least one of the major players involved in this betrayal and trying to, like, topple this family and this triad. Because we have the whole animal dealer thing where it's like, okay, a favor for a favor, which is the title of the episode. It's like, right, I'm going to dispose of this body for you. You have to deliver this animal to this guy. And part of me wondered, did the guy decide to... And it's like, no, like he already had the number and everything. So he was already going to sell them out. But it's so interesting that I guess like maybe he didn't have enough time before. Well, to be fair, he didn't know... Maybe he didn't know who... I don't know, because it didn't go down the betrayal, the stabbing in the back until Charles showed up. He set Bruce off on his own, so he probably knows like Bruce and Bruce's mom, but he probably doesn't associate them with the Sun family. It's probably a thing of maybe she used a different name, or like they probably have a different name here in the States maybe, but it's probably a situation of he didn't associate Charles with him, but the moment Charles showed up, it's like, oh, he was here. I can tell you exactly where he's going. So if Charles hadn't done what he did, once again, the thing wouldn't have escalated to what it was doing. Because, I mean, even later on, his mom is like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would he call in a favor for a favor? I gave the guy like over 300 pounds of meat. But he's like, I can get meat anywhere. But this is like, he made an excuse the moment he found out about Charles, I think. But he was just, I don't know if that was him just kind of trying to squeeze him over because he saw like Bruce is someone he could easily screw over. But it's like, once again, it's all about honor. It's all about a favor for a favor. And if we don't accomplish this, it puts like an asterisk to our names that make us less likely to be trustworthy. And trust is everything when it comes to business and when it comes to operations. So... Like it does, like I said, it specifically seems like he betrayed them specifically because he probably figured that Charles might come his way, or maybe all the local people been warned. Hey, if you see this guy, call us immediately. Like I said, I just don't think he associated him with Bruce or Bruce's mom, but maybe it's also because the person they contacted was like, oh, this is like Kathy's cousin's friend. Like there's such a disconnect. She probably specifically used someone else to like be the immediate intermediary for it. So she probably was able to remove herself enough without even having to drop her own name, because that probably would have drawn attention. Once again, they spent the past like at least 15 years at best, maybe more, hidden away. So they've kind of become boring, and it's meant to be boring so that no one's able to find them. So it is a situation of her cover is probably good enough that it would be fine, that even having an intermediary probably wouldn't be enough to trace back to her and who she really is. But it turns out the place they were supposed to deliver it to was to a party of like this gangster dude who Charles also asked him about the head. But the guy, he immediately recognized it. He's like, how dare you bring that curse upon my house? And these guys show up and they're doing that thing again. Like I said, I couldn't remember the exact wording, but it was like, oh, the evil basically has to be, essentially it's like the evil has to be purged thoroughly. So once again, it feels almost like this cultish triad. Like, what's this about evil being like basically thoroughly purged and stuff? Because I was like, it seems like they killed this guy in particular. I don't know if, because they knew they were going after Charles specifically, but I guess this guy knows too much, so they killed him before he could say anything. But he was scared of him more than he was Charles' family. So, and Bruce trying to warn him, hey, the guy's in the dinosaur costumes. Which that party is so fucked because luckily all the kids were on like iPads, had headphones in and stuff. But it's like, yeah, there's a dead dinosaur dude in the pool. The girl's dad died. You're like, oh, it's kind of this funny thing. But when you actually take a step back, you're like, that's a dark scene because that girl's going to find out her dad is dead because he's the one that set the whole thing up. He actually wanted a dinosaur at the party. That's what the Komodo dragon pseudo was about. It actually had a different name. What was it? Water Monitor was its name or something like that. But it's like, man, that's kind of like really, really dark when you take a step back from it. It's like, oh, this silly likeness of like, oh man, these guys in these costumes like trying to fight and getting murdered. But it's also sad when you're like, there's a house full of children that are going to be severely, severely traumatized. Especially the little girl when it's like, oh yeah, my dad's dead. So it's like, oh. What's also interesting too, because we also learned from that dude that died, he says that everyone thinks Charles killed May, which makes me wonder, because I can't tell if that was the same actress or not. It might have been. I wonder, is that supposed to be like May? Because I was like, that kind of looks like the actress who plays May, but I could be full of shit. I was about to say, I wonder, is that supposed to be like her twin sister? Because Because they specifically said like May of something, so it's like, oh, she's from a very specific family. Because I was wondering, like, is she just her own entrepreneur? Is she just her own thing? But it's like she could be, but she could be like part of a larger family. Because she was like, yeah, I don't want people stepping in my territory. That's why she was like wondering if the sons were like coming to like come in to mosey on them. And it's like, no, I'm not about to like answer to anyone. Okay, so I'm not crazy. I looked it up. The actress's name is Alice Hukin. So it's like, yes, she plays May, and I saw the other character's name. Her name is June. So like I said, I think that's like her twin sister. So whether they're operating together, maybe they're part of a larger family, and she handles another side of things, whereas May handles the drugs, or maybe they are a duo. But like I said, the moment she showed up, I was like, that looks like the actress who plays May. So I'm like, yeah, it's most, because word has gotten out that Charles is responsible for her death, even though he's not. Yeah, they tussled, but he never actually killed her. Someone else did. But it's like, word got out. I mean, especially because that's the downside to his notoriety. When someone big like that shows up and some people die, it's like, well, he had nothing to do with the exploding bike. Even that didn't kill her. Someone put some bullets in her, so. Which, speaking of like him being criminal, I love the guy was like, oh, like, I know you killed a guy with a pool cue in front of me. He's like, dude, I've killed a lot of people. He's like, with a pool cue? And Charles kind of nods like, yeah. So I was like, Jesus, like I've killed so many people. I can't narrow down where I know you from. Like all you said was, oh, I killed someone in front of you with a pool cue, dude. That does not narrow that down. Which is very, very dark. If like, yeah, I've killed that many people. That is just, it's kind of nothing to me now, you know? I mean, maybe in his justification too, it's like, it's not like these were good people, these were bad people, these are other triads. But I mean, who knows like how many people he's had to kill over the years just to kind of prove himself to be his dad's ultimate weapon. You know, who knows what that push and shove like represents and what it looks like. But nevertheless, when it's all said and done, they leave the birthday party and get away. And Charles, his hand is kind of forced when Bruce is willing. He's like, oh, you want me to tell mom what you were doing? And he's like, fine, and takes him to school. And it's like, right, at the end of the day, you don't even want to go to be a doctor. You want to be an improv actor. It's like, why are you even doing this? It's like, oh, because mom says. It's like, oh, do you do everything mom says? He's like, well, no, like, you know, she doesn't know this, so, you know, I'm a rebel. It's like, no, if she knew and you kept doing it anyway, sure, that's a rebel. I could respect that, but the fact is, you're going behind her back. You know what that makes you? Just simply a liar. So, and I guess that also, you know, amongst family, it's got to be truth and honesty. And you being a liar probably cuts a little deep. Once again, it's just, I've been honorable. I've always been the truthful for who I am and what I'm supposed to be. You're up here lying in this comfy life that you have. You taking it for granted, not knowing the sacrifices I've had to make, what I've had to beat through. But it also sucks because for Bruce, it's like he never knew any of that because he was lied to his entire life. And that is hard to be reconcile, where it's like he's handling this better than most people would. Like he's I mean, obviously it's a comedy, so you're not going too deep and dark with it, but it is still the thing of he's trudging along, even though it is a thing of his entire world turning upside down. His mom's cutting up bodies. He finds out he's part of a triad. He even shares this memory with Charles where he's like, yeah, I remember we went for like an icy or something like that. I remember you holding my hand. Like, do you remember that? He's like, no, I don't. But then later on, he's like, Yotai is what we were going for. Which I think also explains his obsession with churros because essentially it's like apparently a more cinnamon version of that, which I thought was kind of interesting. And it turns out Bruce like really loves them, and I guess that's why Charles kind of loves churros as much as he does, because it's like he eats that and he's like obsessed with, which we know he bakes and cooks because at the beginning of the episode. So he was looking up the recipe for it because he was like, man, these things are good. I'm going to like, because I love that he just finished dismembering a body and ate a churro, and he was just sitting there the entire scene snacking on it. And the moment he saw someone at the college with one, he went to get one immediately, never bothered taking off the shirt he has that's covered in blood. It's like his mom had also made this point, we're not in Taipei where we have the cops on our payroll. Here, you screw up, you're screwing up big time, and you're going to draw a lot more attention to us. He wasn't thinking. I was almost scared for the head that was in the bag, because like the Komodo dragon came out in the back. I was like, is he about to eat the head? But luckily he got to it in time. So I'm like, couldn't you found somewhere else to put it? I mean, like, maybe. I mean, Bruce has a point where it's like, hey, like, shouldn't you just take a photo of it? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna just have a decapitated head just hanging out, my photo of it hanging out in my phone. Yeah, like that's, but I get it. It's also not wise to just be carrying around a head because it gets you in trouble. I love that he gets stopped by campus security, which I recognize the person who played. If I'm not mistaken, the actor's name is Tom. I've seen him on like The Break Room, which I kind of was like, yo, that's cool. But it is that thing of like, all right, like people like who host stuff in this nerdy space, in the nerd space, I kind of have to remind myself like, oh yeah, a lot of them are both actors and writers. And or writers, so I have to kind of remember like, well, of course I'd see them and stuff. It kind of throws me for. I wasn't expecting him and Alexis. That was an interesting twist where we find out him and Alexis know each other. Because at first she shows up at the crime scene, and that guy's like, "Hey, could you like not be as obvious when you're helping me?" Like, because he's like, I kind of catch a lot of flack from other cops. Like, they don't give me any respect because I have to work with you. Because she's like not even a cop herself. She's a deputy DA, wants to eventually be president, but she's gonna like, no, I'm gonna go with DA first and stuff like that. Also, when she was eating the raw instant noodles, I was like, I've seen that in stuff, and was like, that seems like the wildest thing to me. That I think that I don't know, I doubt that's fake. I'm sure that probably like I don't know how common that is in like in places of just like eating the raw noodles themselves like that, and just like putting the seasoning on it and just not cooking it. I've spent so much of my life cooking instant noodles, it's never crossed my mind to eat them like chips. Like the way she would just break, like crunch them up, put the seasoning up there. It's like chips. I'm like, it. Even the thought of it tastes weird in my mouth. Like I'm not even. I feel like I can taste it and it tastes weird. But once again, that's because I've gone my entire life just cooking. I've never eaten them like straight out of the pack like that. Maybe it also depends on the brand. Like maybe certain brands are better for that than others, or maybe it's all the same. I have no idea. I'm kind of interested in trying it because I've seen it a few times and stuff, and I'm also like I said, the consistency and just like like I said, I can almost taste it. It tastes weird in my mouth. It's weird, but nevertheless, circling back to it, like I thought it was such an interesting development where it's like, oh, Alexis grew up in Taipei. They knew each other back in Taipei, so it is funny like, oh, someone that you on the criminal side of things and her on the law side of things. Granted, she's willing to cut a lot of slack because when she was younger, she kind of knew what their family business was about. It's like, right, guns and stuff, like all the stuff I saw in your house when we were kids. Like, I'm not, at the time, I really couldn't comprehend and understand, but now I'm older, I get what it is. So she's not judging him too much because she has connects back in Taipei. So she heard about what happened to his dad. So it's like, right, your dad, who's a triad boss, getting shot, you come to US and shit starts like popping off. Like, you can put two and two together, but he's still kind of denying it. I love that she was also the one that broke TK because he gets arrested. He's like, I'm not going to talk. I was like, the moment he's like, oh, I'm not going to talk, you're not going to break me. I'm like, you're going to immediately break. The thing is, she's not even a cop. She still is someone that can make life hard for him. But it's like, right, I don't care about the drug dealing stuff. I want to talk about these two people, that being Bruce and Charles. She didn't quite recognize Charles. Because once again, they probably have different names too. So like, they probably changed their name to... well, no, because she later on says she found Charles because she followed his brother. So I'm like, she probably didn't equate it because Charles was back in Taipei. She didn't know he was here in the States. So, and she also hasn't seen him in like 15 years. Once again, Little Fatty is his nickname because he used to be chubby. So a lot of them haven't seen him in so long. So she wouldn't have been able to recognize him anyways. Like, oh, that's just some dude with Bruce. Like when she probably found out about Bruce's name, she probably immediately knew like, oh, I know your family. But the moment she, saw Charles, because like I said, he was decently old enough. Like at best, Bruce is supposed to be like early 20s, late teens. But we saw a photo, like I had brought it up like last episode. Oh, like the family photos are just of Bruce and their mom. But she does have a photo in her room that is of Bruce, her, and Charles. But I guess it's, and notice it's not the dad there because it's like, right, you would have had too much of a connection there. Like, oh, that's your husband? That triad bond, so there's that. But I think that also answers why, like, out and about and not like rest of the house, it's just photos of just her and Bruce because it's been them together just alone for so long. But the fact that she keeps a photo of her and both of her boys in her room to keep close to her heart, but also, it's in her room. It's somewhere private. Like it's not somewhere like a company or anyone in general will be able to see or find. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Because Bruce did try and talk to his mom about everything, but she's so cagey about a lot of the details because he's like, right, we made an arrangement and so I had to leave. But he's like, what was that arrangement about? And it's like, you don't have to worry about it because she's so busy being like, right, we'll get life back to normal. It's like, I get it, you're trying to protect him, but by keeping him ignorant, you have left him unprepared. I get it. I think for her, it's like, I want our lives to be as normal as possible because she once again knows what Charles had to sacrifice and she doesn't want that for his brother. It's like, it's already too late, to some extent, because she was trying to say like, hey, you aren't your brother, you're you. But he's like, Mom, I didn't run away. There were people with guns and machetes, and I ran toward it. Yeah, I'm like running for my life, but I still ran into danger to make sure. She's like, yeah, but you did that because you were trying to protect your family. That's what it's about. You are like a killer who would run towards a situation, but you were running for different reasons, not to go head. Like, I think that's the difference of your brother will run head first into something. Yeah, to protect the family, but it's also about killing the people, or you were just running for the sake of like running towards danger for the sake of protecting family. It's like, that's the difference, kind of the yin and yang that is you and your brother. And so I had talked about that in the first episode where like there's certain aspects that they kind of complement each other on. And they complement each other as a team, and I think that's obviously something we'll dive more into as the show progresses. But why she's so cagey about the details, I don't know. Like I said, it's a double-edged sword because I get you want to protect Bruce, but you're also leaving him unprepared because you're so like, oh, like I'm gonna get life back to normal that you're. Yeah, I think she's putting up that front, but I think even she's recognizing I've got to have contingency plans in place. But she's probably hopeful that everything's going to work out, but she's prepared in case it doesn't. But it's like, right, you got to pretend like you got to make it seem like you're completely in control. The situation's spiraling out. She's got it, I think, as best wrapped up as she can, but she can't account for everything, especially when Charles kind of set a lot of stuff in motion, going off on kind of going rogue and dragging his brother into it. That's what led to be fair, he was at the club of his own volition. It's like, well, if you weren't spending your tuition on improv classes and stuff like that, you wouldn't have been in that situation to sell drugs with TK. You wouldn't have gotten mixed up with May, which wouldn't have gotten your brother mixed up in that whole situation, and now he wouldn't have gotten a reputation for being the one that ended up killing her. So, and you wouldn't be basically having to deal with her sister right now. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But these interesting developments. Also, the girl he met, Grace, really quickly, there still could be a possibility, but her being so interested in like, oh, hey, like, you do improv? I'd love to see you. I'm like, they bonded and stuff over like, pre-nerve poops and stuff like that, which I'm like, she's part of like, she's meant to keep an eye on, like, but if she was meant to keep an eye on Bruce, why wouldn't she make a move before now? Maybe it's too public to really do anything. Didn't stop June from like popping up at the end of the episode, so I think that kind of defeats that thing. So maybe she is up and up, but I'm like, keeping my eye on you, Grace. I'm like, there's a good chance you might not be on the up and up, and you might actually be a bad person. You might be mixed up in all of this. I have no idea. Maybe she's just going to be the potential love interest on his front while his brother's got the whole situation with Alexis. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of that plays out, where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.